Hope and Shadows, Chapter 5, Daddy's Little Filly, by Stephen Little. My Little Pony and all associated characters are copyright by Hasbro. Dawn was breaking over Sweet Apple Acres when Honey woke from her slumber, and although she was awake, she kept her eyes closed to the invading sunlight. Moving slightly, she snuggled into the warmth coming from the pony next to her, and realized he must have freed himself from his bonds some time in the night. Honey felt his short but powerful legs wrapped around her, and nuzzled the soft feathers of his wing that was draped over her side. Slowly opening her eyes, she saw Jato's gentle features. She had never noticed before just how much he took after his mother. The gentle slope of his nose, the soft curve of his ear, even the roundness of his cheeks reminded her of Rainbow Dash. The trademark goggles he always wore were screwed across his face and left ear only, adding to the cuteness of her image of him. Honey adjusted her head and felt a sharp pain on the right side of her neck. She rubbed the spot until the soreness subsided. Instinctively she looked at the hoof and saw flakes of dried blood and the small streaks of fresh blood smeared across her hoof. She smiled, but didn't want to get her hopes up. Leaning forward, she gently licked Jato's velvet nose. Gradually opening his eyes, Jato woke to a smiling golden pony. "Good morning, Honey Bee," he said with a goofy grin stamped on his face.
"Did you just come up with that?"
"Yeah, well, if you get to call me something, I should be able to have a name for you too," he said defensively.
"It's okay, baby bird. I think it's cute,"
she said, giving him a quick kiss on the lips.
I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me."
"Okay," he answered, a little nervous.
Do you regret what we just did last night? I mean, do you have any second thoughts about us?"
Honey asked uneasily. "No, except that I was tied up and couldn't do anything. Why would you ask something like that?" Honey lowered her right shoulder, exposing the slightly bleeding bite mark that was deeply cut into her neck, where it met her shoulder.
"Did you mean to do this, or was it an accident?"
Jato blushed deeply, trying to hide his head by tucking it under her chin, nuzzling her gently. "I did it on purpose, and I really do mean it. Is that okay?" Honey grabbed the small Pegasus and peppered his face with kisses.
"Oh, baby bird, you've made me so happy!"
Both of the ponies knew what that bite mark meant. Honey belonged to him now. No other colt or stallion would approach her with romantic intent. "I love you, Honey."
"I love you too," she said, hugging him tightly. "Wait, there's something I want to give you."
Honey got up while the pile of blankets and trotted over to where her clothes were piled in a corner. Pulling out her red silk sash, she sashayed back over to Jato.
"Get up, I need some room."
The light blue Pegasus slowly got to his hoofs and stood beside her. Honey laid on the stash amongst the blankets and proceeded to roll around on top of it. "What are you doing?" he asked, confused.
"You'll see. Hold still."
Honey picked up the sash and tied it around his neck like a scarf.
"There. Now other mares will know you belong to me. It's not the same thing as a bite mark, but then mares aren't supposed to bite their stallions."
Jato held up the cloth and smelled it. Honey's scent was all over it. The aroma of honey, beeswax, and hyacinth was unmistakable. "Thanks, Honey. I'll never take it off. Well, maybe in the shower, but that's it." Jato sighed. "I suppose I should take you home now. I'm really not looking forward to this."
"Don't worry, Jato. I won't let him hurt you."
"As long as you're with me, Bee, I'm not afraid of anything." The two ponies walked through the orchard, each lost in their own private thoughts. Gradually the trees started to thin out as the back of the barn came into view. Rounding the building, they saw Honey's home come into view. Like the main house, the smaller home was quaint and plain-looking. The wood of the walls was bare and weathered, and except for the flower boxes gracing many of the windows, looked like any other outbuilding on the farm. Waiting out in front of the small home was Twilight Sparkle. Upon seeing the two younger ponies, she galloped over to meet them. She appeared nervous.
"Good morning, you two."
"Good morning, Princess," they said in unison. "I must say that you've had all of us quite worried when you didn't come home last night. Sorry, Princess. Honey and I had a lot to discuss about the situation with her dad, but we're back now, so I'm just going to walk Honey to the door, then I'm going to go home and face the music from my own parents." "Well, I'm glad you're both safe. You probably don't want to go in there right now. Brayburn is absolutely vivid. Hold on a moment. Twilight looked like she was in deep thought. Taking a step back, she slightly lowered her head. Jado watched as her horn and honey started to glow. When the aura surrounding the filly subsided, Twilight spoke again. Jado, why don't you take Honey over to your place for a while? That spell should allow her to walk on the clouds for 3 days. Oh, I hope it doesn't take that long for things to cool down. No, he said defiantly. I am so bucking tired of this. I'm sick of him being mad at me for no reason. One way or the other, I'm ending this today. Jado pushed past Twilight and marched straight up to the door, Honey at his side. Inside the house, voices could be heard. Now, cousin, you need to calm down. All this fussing ain't gonna solve nothing. I swear, Applejack, when I get my hoofs on that boy, I'm gonna— You're gonna what? Jado challenged as he and Honey entered the house. The front room was crowded with ponies. Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, Luna and Applejack were all waiting for the pair to return from their date. Twilight teleported into the house to appear next to the other grown mares.
Are you okay, honey? We got super worried when you didn't come home last night,
Pinkie Pie asked.
I'm fine, Mama.
I'm still waiting for an answer, Brayburn. You're gonna do what when you get your hoofs on me?
Jado, dear, please don't provoke him,
his mother implored. Things have already been stressful enough.
Where in tarnation have you two been?
Brayburn asked, a dark scowl darkening the contours of his face.
Brayburn, please calm down.
This isn't going to solve anything, Luna pleaded.
No, I want an explanation.
It doesn't matter where we were. The real issue here is that not matter what I say or what I do, I'll never be good enough for Honey, or will I? Jado growled. The young Pegasus was so angry with the other stallion, tears were forming at the corners of his eyes.
Daddy, you've done nothing but bully him and try to run him off for the last 3 years. It's not fair to him, and it's not fair to me,
Honey insisted. Honey, to your room. I'll talk with you when I'm done here, Brayburn commanded. No, Honey, you stay right where you are, Jado countered. Who the buck do you think you are? Brayburn shouted outraged.
I'm her bucking mate.
There was a collective gasp around the room as all eyes zeroed on Honey's neck just above the shoulder. The ragged fur and delayed signs of blood left little doubt to the truth of his words. Honey belongs to me now, and I belong to her, and that trumps you. Brayburn reared back and let fly with his right front hoof. Just before his punch connected, Honey pushed Jado out of the way and caught the full force of the hoof on the left side of her face. The power of the blow sent her rolling onto the ground, her lower lip split and bleeding. Brayburn stood there in stunned silence while every other pony in the room rushed to help her. Jado jumped in between the mares and his mate and reared back, striking out with his front hoofs aggressively.
Get away from her!
Back down on all 4 legs, he spread his wings defensively, shielding his mare from the other ponies in the room.
We're just trying to help, Jado,
his mother said softly. Please calm down. Jado was almost panicky. His head was lowered and his teeth bare. The back of his mane stood almost straight up. So much adrenaline was pumping through him that his wings shook and his legs began to stretch and flex on their own in preparation for combat.
Just leave us alone,
he shouted, the light of anger and hatred shining in his eyes. Behind him, Honey slowly got to her hoofs and placed a hoof on his lower back.
Baby bird, no,
she said softly as she stroked her hoof down his back. Her voice had an immediate effect on him. Looking back at the pony he loved, his vision began to clear as he saw the tears in Honey's eyes slowly roll down her cheeks. Jado stood up, folded his wings, and shook out his back legs. Jado turned around and licked the tears from her cheeks and the blood from her lip. Come on, Bee, let's get out of here. Moving towards the door, Honey took a parting look at her father, and, through her tears, she uttered 3 words that shook Brayburn to his core.
I hate you!
Closing the door behind them, they left the small house in silence. Brayburn sat there, staring at the door. The last 3 words his daughter said to him echoing in his ears. What have I done? He asked himself. Brayburn came back to his senses when he saw a rolling pin being shook in his face.
Are you listening to me? Equestria to Brayburn! Hello!
Pinkie waved a rolling pin in front of her husband.
I swear, Brayburn, if you don't answer me, I'm going to bonk you over the head with this thing.
I hit my own daughter, was the only thing he said. The other ponies had looks of concern on their faces, all but Pinkie.
That wasn't your fault, Brazy. Honey stepped into it, and you know why. She did it because she loves Jado. She loves that little blue colt so very much that she was willing to get hurt so he wouldn't. That's what we've been trying to tell you all night, Brayburn. These two are in love, Luna said. Jato is a good young stallion. He has a good job with the weather team. He gets good grades in school, and aside from issues with his language and a few accidents, he's never been in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. I've kept my mouth shut because Twi and Luna asked me to. I don't like the way you've treated my son, and sure as heck don't like what you insinuated about me and Soren as parents. We raised our boy right. He may be a bit of a loudmouth, and he tends to show off, but he would never do anything to hurt Honey.
Rainbow's right, cousin.
You've been acting like a dog that's done has his meal snatched from him. Please tell me this and about Blossom. Brayburn visibly winced when she said the name. Brayburn, that wasn't your fault. You can't be blaming yourself for it and taking it out on any target of opportunity. Blossom isn't Honey, and that rat Charger isn't Jato.
I know. Charger never stood up to us like Jato just did. He didn't love Blossom. Oh, Celestia, what have I done? Applejack sighed. Twi, come outside for a moment. We gotta talk. Twilight followed her out the door. Pinky pushed her rolling pin under Brayburn's nose. When he looked up, he noticed the shine gone from her eyes and her mane hanging down limp.
And you, mister, you're going to find our daughter and bring her home, or so help me Celestia. Not only will my flank be off limits to you, but I'll shove this rolling pin so far under your tail you'll be cuffing up old Cookie Doo for a week.
Outside, Applejack explained everything to Twilight about Blossom and Chaser, and Brayburn's role in it all. Oh my goodness, that's horrible. Where is she now?
She's in Huffington. She runs a jewelry store there. She doesn't make them, but she always had a knack for sales, so I figure they hired her on.
She doesn't work at T-Ponies, does she?
Yeah, how'd you know?
Applejack asked curiously. While we were in Huffington, we got something made for Applebloom and some alterations for a present for Belle and Scoot. Your description of her sounds exactly like the salesman we spoke to.
The reason I called you out here is because I want to know if you could take me there. I know it's a lot to ask, but we really need to talk to her. She and Brayburn were as close as brother and sister when they were growing up. I think she can help.
Of course, Applejack. Anything I can do to help. Twilight extended her right wing and used it to pull Applejack in close. Hang on. With a brilliant purple flash, they were gone. The door to the small house slammed open when Rainbow Dash, Luna, and Brayburn walked out. I'll bring her back, Pinky. I promise. And Rainbow, I won't do anything back to Jato. I was wrong to treat him the way I did.
Thank you, Brayburn. It means a lot to me to hear you say that. My little boy really is a good colt. You can trust him, Dash said, smiling.
Dash, why don't you check your house? Twilight told me she cast a cloud-walking spell on Honey before they came inside. Luna said. Pinky and I will look through town. Brayburn, why don't you start at the clubhouse? It's at the northeast corner of the orchard. The ponies ran off in different directions on the search for the two young lovers. Back in the old clubhouse, the two ponies were trying to figure out what to do.
What about your place? Princess Twilight suggested it for some reason, I suppose?
That's the first place they'd look. I'm sure some of them are on their way there now. I wouldn't be surprised if the clubhouse was next on their list. Honey nodded, and she held her face with a hoof. Does your lip still hurt?
Yeah, at least the bleeding stopped.
That punch was meant for me. Why did you do that, Honey? I know it sounds kind of corny, but it hurts to see you hurt.
I stepped in front of that hoof because I made a promise, Jato. I promised I wouldn't let my dad hurt you, and I meant it.
You didn't have to do that, but thank you. Jato nuzzled her against her neck. I know you say you're fine, but I think we should get you looked over just to be sure. Fluttershy's cottage isn't that far from here. I think she has the day off. Maybe we should go talk to her. I mean, she is practically family for the both of us.
Okay.
Honey poked her head out of the door and looked around the various apple trees surrounding them.
It looked like no pony is out there. We should get going before some pony shows up.
They quickly ran down the ramp and turned north towards Fluttershy's home. As they walked through the apple trees, Jato couldn't help but voice his thoughts. Honey, about earlier, when I said I was your mate, I didn't mean to speak for you, and I'm sorry if what I said embarrassed you. Honey pulled the small Pegasus to the side and kissed him on the lips passionately. When she finally released him, he staggered a bit, then quickly composed himself.
Jato, I love you, and I'm happy that you consider me your mate, because that's what we are. I'm your mate, and you're mine. Never forget that, and never feel bad about it.
I do think that's possible. Jato sighed as he looked ahead and saw the road to Fluttershy's home. Walking out of the orchard and onto the road, he looked back over to a smiling Honey. Any thoughts about where we should go when we're done here? I was thinking about taking you to Cloudsdale. I know my Grandma Honeyhoo would let us stay there for a while.
As much as I'd love to meet your grandma, being an earth pony, I'd stick out like a unicorn with 2 horns, and I'm sure word would quickly get back to Father where we are.
Honey thought for a moment.
What about your sister and Sweetie Belle?
Nah, she and Sis are staying with Sweetie Belle's mother at the boutique until they can find a place of their own, he told her. As they approached the door, Jato noticed that the wound he had inflicted on her was starting to bleed again. Trails of blood had slowly flowed down her right front leg. Jato knocked on the door. "Honey, are you okay?" he asked worriedly.
"Huh?"
She looked down to where Jato was looking.
"Oh, I guess that bite mark opened again. It stings a little, but it doesn't really hurt anymore."
Big Macintosh opened the door to find Jato giving Honey a kiss on the cheek.
"I interrupted something?"
Jato squeaked in fright.
Mac, how's it going?
Honey's hurt, and we were wondering if Fluttershy was here." Macintosh looked Honey up and down.
"You okay, Honey?"
"Yeah, just a little dirty, I guess."
"Well, you best come in. Can't leave you bleeding on the doorstep."
The 2 young ponies followed him into the living room.
"Shag can come down here. We have company. Bring your first aid kit."
Fluttershy galloped down the stairs.
"I just put Chaser down for a nap. Is someone hurt, Mackie?"
Big Macintosh nodded towards the 2 ponies standing by the coffee table. Fluttershy walked into the living room and sat in front of Honey to inspect her injuries.
"This looks like a bite mark,"
the yellow Pegasus said, looking at her neck. Turning Honey's head to the side with a hoof, Fluttershy gasped when she saw the swollen, split lip.
"Honey, who did this to you?"
"Later you got some splaining to do,"
the large red stallion said as he brought his face within an inch of Jato's.
Well, you see, the bite mark on her neck, well, that kinda was me. The split lip she got from Brayburn." "Brayburn did this?"
Fluttershy asked, shocked and more than a little angry.
"Yes, but he didn't mean to hit me. It was an accident,"
Honey explained.
"You'll best start talking sense. I know my cousin is not a violent pony, but then you 2 have never lied to me, so you'll best start at the beginning."
Macintosh sat on the couch and got comfortable for what he expected to be a long story. Fluttershy had finished stitching the bite mark on Honey's shoulder when they finished their story. Fluttershy was blushing wildly as she tapped down the bandage.
"That was some story, but are you sure you know what you're doing? I mean, I love you both, and I know you're not dumb, but you're so young." "That's what everyone's telling us. I know we have still a year of school left once summer is over, but I have my own job and my own bits. Jato just got a job, and soon he'll be making his own bits too. It's not like we're getting married or something. We just want to be together and left alone. We're old enough to know what's best for us,"
Honey explained.
"I can't believe Brayburn would lose control like that. I've got to give you credit, Jato. It took a lot of guts to stand up to Brayburn like that. That polling in the bowling alley, you didn't by any chance got a name, did you?"
"Sorry, Mac. I was a little busy kicking his flank to get a name. I don't think Mr. Kingpin knew either. He just called him the other pony and had some pony get Garnet to toss him in a cell." Big Macintosh chuckled.
"You did good, Jato. You gotta protect the mare you care about. I'm proud of you, and I know your pa will be too. Where are you going to go now? You're not running away, are you?"
"No, Mac. I think we're going to my Grandpa Pie's place. I know he'll understand,"
Honey said.
"Good. I need to go to have a word with Garnet."
As he walked towards the door, he knelt down and kissed his wife.
"Don't wait up, Shy. I might be a while."
Jato followed him and sat next to Honey. When he left, Fluttershy's face lit up in a huge smile.
"I'm so happy for the both of you. You're just so cute together,"
she said, hugging both the ponies. "I've been meaning to ask, what is that thing on your hoof?" Jato asked.
"Dinky made it for me.
She's very good at mechanical things," Fluttershy said, as she held up the apparatus attached to her hoof, showing a sort of clamp with a long wire that travelled up her leg and attached to her wing.
"By moving my wing, I can open and close the clamp. This lets me hold things like a needle or scalpel or bandages better."
"That's really cool," Jato said excitedly. Oh, Fluttershy, you know that cart you let me use when I help you transport animals? Do you think I could borrow it so I can take Honey flying to her grandpa's place? Yes, of course. You two be careful and please don't worry. If I know my friends, your parents, everything will work out the best. The two ponies thanked her and then walked out of the cottage and over to the left side where Fluttershy kept all her supplies. Okay, Honey, climb on in and while I get hitched up.
This is like my own private carriage. This is so cool,
she giggled as Jato tightened the final strap. Jato removed his goggles and gave them to Honey. Here, you might need these. Honey put the goggles on and held on to the side of the cart.
I'm ready, I think. Don't go too fast.
Okay, I'll try to keep it under the sound barrier, he said, smiling. Jato started to run. Faster and faster his legs propelled him and the cart down the road. With each stretch of his legs he could feel the muscles bunch, and with a mighty leap he spread his wings and took off into the air with Honey screaming behind him. As they leveled out high in the air, Jato looked back to see Honey breathing heavily.
I told you to take it slow, she hollered at him.
Sorry, Honey, I needed to build up speed to get the cart off the ground, he said, smiling. So, which way to go?
Last time I was there, we traveled west of Fluttershy's home, so I guess head that way until you see a great patch of land below with a windmill and an old farmhouse with a silo out front. That should be my grandpa's rock farm.
A rock farm? Seriously?
No, that's what Mama calls it. It's really a quarry. My aunts Inky and Blinky work there too. They look for crystals and gems, but a lot of the rock is cut and sold to builders in Canterlot and most of the big cities and towns.
Jato had been flying for over what seemed like hours. It had become a strain to beat his wings up and down. He hadn't thought that towing a wagon with a pony in it would be different than a bunch of bunnies. Out in the distance he saw a windmill with a stone cottage off to the side. Not far from them was a silo Honey had told him about. Turning around he saw Honey sleeping soundly in the cart. Hey, Honey! Honey, is this the place? Honey woke up and saw the land below them.
Yes, this is it. I can see Grandpa and my aunts Inky and Blinky down there. If you can, land over by the house.
Jato did a series of tight turns to burn off some of his speed. As he neared the ground, he extended his wings as far as they could go and tilted them back to further slow his descent. His hoofs touched the ground and he realized he was still going too fast. He galloped as hard as he could to keep up with the momentum of the wagon that was now pushing him, but he was rapidly losing ground. In that last-ditch effort he spun in his harness and turned around. Putting his hoofs against the wagon, he planted his back hoofs down into the ground. "Got to save Honey! Going to crash! Got to save Honey!" he thought to himself. His hoofs dug 2 deep furrows in the ground when the wagon struck the side of the house with a sickening crunch, trapping Jato between the house and the wrecked wagon. Honey pulled herself out from the wreckage and desperately tried to dig Jato out. Throwing aside timber and harness, she found him half buried in the ground and unconscious. His wings were bent at horrible angles, and his feathers littered the ground around the crash site.
"Grandpa, please help! I need help!"
she shouted as loud as she could. Soil, rock, and blue feathers flew as she tried to dig him out. A strong tan hoof moved her aside. 2 gray mares, one darker than the other, and an old stallion dug carefully around the young Pegasus, and with a mighty heave they plucked him from the ground like a blue carrot and rested him on the stallion's back. "Come on, let's get him inside."